back, guys. So today we're going to be talking about this guy right here. So this is a Holosun 3-power magnifier. I got this because after I got the UTG magnifier, I decided I do actually like magnifiers and the principles behind them. So I went ahead and got this one because I want something a little bit nicer. I've had this now for probably close to 5-6 months, somewhere in there. And I've used it just about every time I've gone to the range, and I like it quite a bit. But here's kind of the quick specs for you. Hopefully you can read that. It's a 3-power magnifier, as I already said. The field of view is 37 inches at 100 yards. It is waterproof, fog-proof, shock-proof, and I have tested the waterproof aspect of it. Whenever we went out in the rain, it didn't fog up. The glass obviously had water that stuck to it because water will stick on everything, including the EOTech and everything else. So just know you're going to get water droplets on there. You might want to put some Rain X or something else on there. I don't know if that would mess with the clarity or not, but just know that water droplets will stick to it, which will kind of obscure your field of view, but that's pretty much the same with any optic. But it is fog proof, so we were out there the entire time in the rain, and we were outside in the rain for probably about 3 to 4 hours, and my whole rifle got wet. Not a big deal, but the optic held up just fine. Obviously no water got in there. It's definitely rain proof. I haven't tested when it comes to just like throw it in a lake or anything, but it worked just fine in the rain, and obviously it didn't fog up whatsoever, and the temperature was fluctuating, getting cooler as it rained. So there's that. Didn't fog up at all, so kudos to that. It has a 1.41 inch center height. That's just how it comes in the box, and then it has a 1.63, basically is what it raises to as the spacer. So what that boils down to is if you have an EOTech like this one that doesn't have a quick detach, like a throw lever or anything on it, where it just mounts directly to the rail, so it's a absolute co-witness height EOTech, or any optic for that matter. This one comes out of the package ready for that, and it does line up perfectly. The UTG one I talked about sits a little bit higher. It's a little bit obnoxious because the top of the EOTech is in your field of view. So with this one, it lines up perfectly. Nothing's in the way. But it does come with a riser where if you have a higher, lower 1/3 height riser, like the EOTechs that have the quick detach mounts, or any of the other popular ones out there, you can put the riser, attach it. It screws in with some screws, and I'll show you that in a second. But you can raise the height of it to match your riser. Now, honestly, side note, if you buy an EOTech, now if you're trying to be cheap, then you can buy a 512 model, or this one, which is just a CR123 basically model of that. I would go ahead and get the higher one, because if you're using ear pro or a helmet or anything like that, you're going to want the higher mount because you can get a little bit better cheek well without breaking the seal on your ears. So that's just something to take note of. It also does come with this little bikini rubber cap thing you can put over it to protect it. I usually only do that if I'm storing it for a long period of time, or if I'm going to be throwing it around in the truck or something like that, which isn't all the time. So most of the time whenever I take it to the range and I use it, I don't even bother with those things. But it comes with it. So here is it taken off the mount. Obviously you can tell I've spray painted this one. It comes black. You can see the color right there. The body is made out of aluminum, and for its size, it's actually pretty hefty. It feels very solid. I'd say it's maybe a little bit heavier than the UTG. Could be wrong about that, but it feels heavier. Maybe it's just because it's smaller that it just feels heavier when in comparison to that. But maybe I'll make a direct comparison video to other ones out there. But for now, this is just revealing this. But anyway, so it comes with a quick throw lever right here, which you can see. And then the thing I like about this over the UTG is, see this little push tab right here. Whenever you lock it down, you'll notice that locks it. So you can't pull up on there whatsoever. You can see it locks it in place. So there's this little button right here that plunges in. It's spring loaded. You can see whenever I move it right there, you can see it unlocks it. So if you push in on it, or you could stick something inside that tiny little hole right there, move it, it unlocks. So on the other side, it has a torque screw, which is nice. So you don't have to worry about stripping the screw out like you would with like an Allen key. And so you can adjust it to where it's snug on there, and then whenever you tighten it down, it locks it in place. So a lot of Picatinny rails aren't necessarily to spec, so that's a nice little touch right there. I like the throw lever quite a bit. Like I said, it's better than the UTG one, and this mounting system, in my opinion, is superior to the Vortex. So if you're looking at the Vortex 3X and it's their older model, they came out with one that's a little bit smaller now. I don't have any experience with that one. I just have experience with their older model that's about the same size as this one. I like this one better. So the Vortex has a little like button that you push kind of on the front or on the back, depending on where you orient it. And the Vortex actually flips to the left versus this one flips to the right. And whenever you have one that flips to the left, basically it blocks your entire field of view. So you have to basically close your left eye and look through the optic, which is pretty much bad. You don't want to do that. You want a way to switch over to the right. Now the Vortex, you can switch over to where it flips to the right, but whenever you do that, the push button is in a weird, awkward place where it's not intuitive to grab it. You basically have to take both hands in order to finagle it over to the unlock position. Versus this one, all you do, just literally flip it over or flip it back. And I have not found this thing to move on its own. You can see the 2 screws right here, and I'll show you in a second. That's how you put the spacer plate on there. But I haven't had this thing move at all whenever I haven't wanted it to. So I was worried because I saw a few different reviews saying, oh, it's a little bit looser than I would like it to be. But you can see there's a little, it looks like a flat spring inside there, a metal spring that's providing the tension. And I haven't had it get looser or I guess tighter, which would be weird. But it hasn't gotten any looser over time. It stayed basically the same tension. And it stays over whenever you flip it over. I haven't had it flip back. And I haven't had it just, rock back and forth or anything like that. So I like this a lot more than I do the UTG mount, which the UTG one, you have to kind of pull back and then flip it over and it locks back in place, which nothing wrong with, but this one's faster. So if speed's more your game, then this one's for you, I guess. Let me show you, I'll put it back on here on the rifle and kind of show you how it works. But before that, I do want to show you right here, you have your windage and elevation kind of on the sides, and you can use this right here, which is a positive or a negative depending on, I guess, what you're using it for. So this one, it has a little flat head screwdriver right here, which is for adjusting the windage and elevation. And really all you're doing whenever you're adjusting those is just changing the center of the dot. So you're just lining it up to your dot to where you're not actually zeroing anything. Even if you didn't zero this, if you were to shoot it, as long as your optic itself is parallax free, you'd be fine. All this is doing is magnifying your red dot. So that's a nice little touch, but the bad thing about it is you can see how much it sticks out. If you're trying to mount this flush right up against your rear sight, you won't be able to because of that. Now you could unscrew that, take it off, but I don't know. I like having a little way to adjust it. But you can adjust these with 223 casings, or probably any other casing similar to the 223. But you can adjust it with that just fine, so it's not a big deal. So you don't really need that. You can take it off if you want to, but I just kind of leave it on there. Also, criticism is the eye relief right here. Well, it's not the eye relief, it's the focus. It's really stiff, so you can move it, and obviously I can get it to move either way, and it was that way before I spray painted too, so it's not like there's paint in there or anything, but it's just kind of stiff. So that's one thing. I mean, it's nice, it doesn't move around, but it's just kind of a pain. Whenever you have it on the rifle and you're trying to adjust it, it'll flip itself over, so you kind of have to hold it down and then adjust it, which is kind of annoying, but I don't know, it's just a minor criticism, I guess. So I'll go ahead and pause the video here and show you what's in the box. So what comes in the box? Obviously instruction manual, which I haven't bothered to look at yet. It comes with this little riser, and again, you saw the 2 little screws on there that I showed you earlier. Here's the 2 longer screws to replace them with, and all it does is just go through here, and this just makes it a lower 1/3 co-witness height, which again I think is more better, more optimal than what I have on here. But I'm not going to go switch around everything I have to buy new optics just for that, so I'll make do with what I got. It comes with that, and it also comes with a little cleaning cloth, which, woohoo. If it gets dirty, great. Kind of throw that off to the side. So I'll show you how the flip mount works. So you can see if I flip it with my thumb, flips over relatively easily, but it still takes a good amount of force. Like if still with them, and I'm shaking this thing pretty hard and it's just barely moving. And I can't get it to mount over there. I just got it to barely stick. So I'm really flinging this thing sideways and I can't get it to go. So that's something that I liked because I was really worried about this whenever I had it, because I know the EOTechs are really solid and they take a good amount of effort to flip over to the side, and I was worried that this one would just kind of flop over real easily on itself and not stay put. But some of the reviews I've seen say that, but mine, at least this example, has not had that problem whatsoever. It hasn't gotten looser. So, and I think personally, it's the perfect amount of tension, at least in my opinion. One thing I will show, whenever you flip it off to the side, you can see this is a UTG. Let me flip it back up. This is a UTG backup sight, or flip up sight, whatever you want to call it. I have no problems with this sight. It's actually pretty solid for how much it costs. But I like, whenever I'm going with more budget options, I like the M-Bus sights a little bit better. These are pretty much on all my guns that I can get away with. But whenever I had it on here, the Magpul one would not clear this Holosun whenever it's flipped to the side, so I couldn't flip the rear sight up. So that was kind of obnoxious. Now, if you have a lower third co-witness height on here, so like if your EOTech is, the model where it's up a little bit higher, and you use the spacer on here, then it would obviously make this go up or out a little bit farther, and you would probably have no problem whatsoever. But I found that these will still flip up. So if you have the same, or if you have an EOTech 512 model and you want to use this, if you want rear sights that can be usable with this flip to the side, you'll have to either get these UTGs, or if you want to get the Magpul, the M-Bus Pro sights, the metal ones are thinner, they would work. But just know that if you want to look up the dimensions of this specific sight, the UTG, it just barely clears, and it still rubs a little bit on that thing. So whatever you find, if it's thinner than this profile right here, you'd be fine. Anything thicker than that, you're going to have to either use a spacer, or you're going to have to find some different rear sights. So that's why this is black on there and it's not painted yet. But overall, the eye relief, I will say, is awesome. So the eye relief, if you look at my finger right here, and I just measured this just to get a good idea, the length of my finger is how far the eye relief is. So right to here, right to where my finger connects to the knuckle. So right about here, if you want to see that, that's how far the eye relief is. So if your eye is right here, you can see. Now you can see through it a little bit farther back than that, but obviously you get some scope ring shadow. The closer you get, obviously you can use it just fine too. So the eye relief on this thing is, in my opinion, better than a Vortex. It's significantly better than UTG. The UTG one you have to get pretty close on. So in my opinion, if you're going to spend less than $200 or around $200, this one is the way to go. It's extremely solid. One thing I did forget to mention is the clarity on this. So the clarity on the UTG one, I would say from 1 being basically looking at a brick wall, 10 being like not looking through anything. The UTG I'd put somewhere maybe 6 or 7. It's still pretty clear, but it's not perfectly clear. This one I would say is similar, probably on par with the Vortex, their $200 option. I would say it's somewhere around a 7 or an 8 out of 10, which in my opinion is still extremely clear, but it's just not perfectly clear. So I have a couple of nicer scopes that are a little bit clearer than this, but they're $400 scopes and they're fixed power, so they're pretty nice, but they're a little bit clearer on this. So now, granted, this is just a 3x power scope, so in my opinion, you don't need the best glass ever on something like this, because again, it's just 3 power. So the use for this, in case you're wondering like why would I get this instead of say a variable power optic that you could put on here, like a 1 to 6 or 1 to 8, something like that. One is just how easy it is to use. 2 is if you're more focused on say CQB type distances and things, but you want something that gives you a little bit more distance to reach out there or to identify a target, this is a pretty good option. Whenever I'm shooting out to 300 yards, you can shoot a lot better with this, obviously, and I can actually see the target a lot better. So you don't want to shoot what you can't identify. But obviously more magnification is generally better. But that said, you're going to compromise with any kind of system you have. I like having a red dot with a magnifier because it allows me to use my iron sights through my optic. I don't have to go and take off every single optic I have, and then I don't have to use a offset red dot or offset iron sights, which arguably can be better or worse depending on what you practice with. So this is just what I have right now. I have ordered a primary arms 1 to 6 variable optic, but it's part of it's back ordered, so it'll be here at some point. But I'll do a review on that here in the future whenever it gets in. I put some rounds through it. But anyways, so hope you all enjoyed this this video. Give us a like, give us a subscribe, comment below. I try to answer again every question that y'all have. So have a good one. It's very humid out here, so this doesn't look as clear as it probably could. Again, let me flip it to the side. And you can see the glass is incredibly clear. Alright, so here's your field of view. That is a Popeye's chicken down there, and that road is probably 300 yards, maybe a little bit further. The Popeye's chicken is probably 350, close to 400 yards. So you can see that football post down there on the right, it's red. It is about 250 yards away. So that'll give you a decent idea of the field of view. It's pretty cloudy out here right now. This will also give you a pretty good idea of the clarity. This glass is extremely clear. And just to kind of show you what it looks like, what I'm. Alright, here's the field of view on the UTG. You can see the edges aren't quite as clear, but you have a wider field of view. This is from the same exact position. Hopefully this gives you a pretty good idea. You can tell this one's pretty much the same clarity, maybe a little bit less clear, mainly because a little bit of fish bowling around the very edge, but not much. And again, this is what I'm looking at. So again, that road down there is at least 300 yards away, probably more like 4. So that gives you a general idea. Those are actually 2 football fields right there in front of me to the right, and I'm about 25 yards behind them.